despite all these scandals, Thai people's faith in Buddhism is still very high. A lot of people still consider it to be like just one-time incident. They didn't realize that this is actually systematic and the problem is structural. You're going to be surprised that actually if you look at numbers of donation across the country after the incident, Thai people still make a lot of donation to Buddhist temples. If that kind of public perception doesn't change, it's going to be very difficult.
Welcome to Mekong Matters, a podcast from the Global Initiative Against Transnational Organized Crime. This is Miss Gulf, a 35-year-old Thai woman who allegedly extorted Buddhist monks by threatening to release videos of them after they had sex. Police found 80,000 photos on various devices, which were supposedly used to blackmail the monks over 3 years. Miss Gulf faces charges, including supporting embezzlement by officials responsible for managing property and conspiracy to launder money. And 13 monks have been disrobed since the beginning of the scandal. But this is not an isolated incident. In this episode, we speak to Khemthong Tonsakulrungruang, a specialist in the intersection between Buddhism and constitutional law, about a wave of financial crimes linked to Buddhist temples in Thailand. Reports of embezzlement and misuse of funds have emerged, as well as other scandals. Financial crimes are diverse and result in the financial loss of the state, private entities, or individuals. We look at how it has been allowed to happen and what it means for regulations around Buddhist temples in Thailand.
It's not that we never heard of any like rogue monks who embezzle monies or a monk who slept with a woman breaking the vow of celibacy. From time to time, you see news of these scandals emerge. I think what shocked people is first is the connection between each case. So it's not just one abbot. This is 13. At least, investigation may reveal more. And these are not ordinary monks. These are senior abbots, which mean people expect a more senior abbots to be more uptight or more virtuous. But this scandal already upend our assumption about the structure and credibility of Thai Sangha, the Buddhist order. As the investigation goes on, we know that a lot of these temples are very rich, but still we didn't expect the scale of we were talking about billions of Thai baht. That scale is beyond a lot of people's imagination and comprehension. So that's the public is shocked. It's not that we never heard of bad monks. It's just we've never seen it in a systematic manner like this.
Thank you. I was wondering as well, because you mentioned these monks they're senior abbots, right? So does it give them like maybe a sense that they are untouchable in some way, and because they're from such a big reputation temple as well, so they feel like they are untouchable and that they could do this without being revealed or without being investigated, and there won't be any consequence. Like, would that give them that sense? Is that why it's such a big scales and there's so many of them involved in it?
I think this is a little more complicated than that. Monks in Thailand in general are considered to be sacred. They belong to a different class. Thai peoples are told not to question monks because they belong to a different realm. They are men of spiritual journey, stuff like that. So it's almost a sin, a bad thing to question integrity of monks. So not only like senior abbots, but even like ordinary monks. Any man in saffron robe earn some kind of respect and you can say immunity. But the more senior you are, the more people see you as a more like a virtuous or more perfect exemplar of morality.
So, like you mentioned, there are several cases that this happened before. Then, what regulatory measure is it to ensure that the temple money is used appropriately?
Yeah, I mean the Sangha Council, which is like the central body that control and administer Thai Buddhist order. They didn't sit idle. I mean, they realized it to some extent that there's a problem. Ideally, is that all the incomes must go into the temple's account, and this account is actually managed not by a monk, but in every temple there's supposed to be like a secretary, which is like a lay person, just like me, that help the abbot. So the abbot should be shouldn't be like touching or working with money. Should be this guy, this person. And the regulations say that you should have all the accounting standard things like reporting stuff like that. The problem is that a lot of these measures are not followed. We have like maybe like less than 10% of temples across the country comply with these regulatory measures. So actually, the law is there, the regulation is there. Enforcement of it, there's the key question.
I think that's really interesting, and I think that can be said to many things that are happening in Southeast Asia as well. That on paper the laws look really good, but the enforcement is another story.
Yeah, the enforcement is kind of tricky. I mean, temples come in various size. You may have a big temples that might host up to 100 monks, and well resourced. They receive like 100 million baht per year. In that kind of temples, I mean, it makes sense to have a very stringent accounting practice, and they have resources to comply. But then you have like a small temples, maybe 1 or 2 monks stationing in that temples, and they rarely make ends meet. In that case, I mean, to comply with a stringent accounting standard is almost impossible, right? I mean, the problem is that a lot of these monks, they get ordained at a very young age. So they learn a lot about religious stuff. They learn something about like maybe language and some social science studies and philosophy. But most of them has never been trained in finance before. Like financial literacy is very low. So if you ask an abbot, maybe like a 70 years old abbot, to comply with like financial regulation, like it's very difficult for them to do that. Yeah.
It seems like there's a lot of issue coming from like misuse of the fund, isn't it? So is there any rules that you only allow to use the donation money for this or that kind of like work, or the monk can just spend them however they like?
Right. So there's actually that's very important. So there are two frameworks: the religious framework, monastic framework. I mean, it's like a very socialistic community in the sense that each monk member of the temple isn't supposed to own anything. Everything is like share. It is a common property. They can have like their robes, their tiny belonging, but everything else should be put into a common property. That's what monastic laws says. But the civil codes say that like you have the right to private properties, and so it comes down to the abbot, how you want to enforce the monastic rules. And the abbot is the one with, I would say that sole authority within that temple. So there's no rules on how you should spend it. It depends on the senior abbot's discretion. But at the same time, you have to understand that Thai monastery have a lot of income from many ways. Of course, donation, and donation happen. You can donate to the temple, but sometimes, if you really like particular monk, you hand him cash that goes directly to the monk, and it depends on that monk whether he put it in his personal account or he gonna honestly turn it in. And also like the senior abbots of that temple has to manage. They run some business as well. A lot of these temples own big pieces of land that they lease. So they are big landlords in Thailand too. So they have rents, they collect rents, and no one knows how all these accounting going. If you ask me, there's no regulation on how a temple can use or not use their money. Is up to the abbot, and that's part of the big loophole here.
In your personal experience and knowledge, what do you think should be done to stop this or preventing this from happening or reduce the amount of harm it's happening in the future?
Yeah, I mean, a stronger accounting standard. That's the only way out, I think. Right now, there's the police try to crack down on bad monks, but this is like a knee-jerk reaction. This is just reaction. It doesn't solve anything structural. They just round up monks with like drug problems or criminal record problems. But this is white-collar crime. This is very delicate, and police doesn't help. You need like a very strong community. You need like good investigative journalism. You need very good forensic accountant to do all these jobs. This is not police job. The main actor here is the Sangha Council, who is the central government of Thai Buddhism. They couldn't simply just issue a rules and hope that everyone will comply. They have to work really hard to enforce the rules. The Sangha Council has a very good government structure in sense like from the central government, they have regional government, and then they have provincial, and then district down to the temple. So actually they have very good structure of command. They have to utilize that.
So I also want to ask, because we heard that a new government body is being put in place to review the monastic regulation. What changes do you think it needed to be made to prevent this from happening in the future?
Yeah, so right now I think that there's some temporary measures that has already been announced. One of them, I think that the temple cannot hold cash more than 10,000 baht at any times, and if you want to make a donation to a temple is tax deductible, but usually like donation come in like in cash basis. But the new regulation say that any donation has to be like through electronic channel. So like there's gonna be a trail for you to look at it, right? Otherwise, you can still donate to the temple, but it's not tax deductible. So that kind of measure, that kind of measure is what I think the temple. That's a good beginning step. That's a good first step.
You have been listening to Mekong Matters, a monthly podcast from the Global Initiative Against Transnational Organized Crime. Thank you for listening.